started this project called Early Warning India, and we started our project sometimes in April, 1st of April. Thereafter, we went into a 1.5 months of lockdown, as all of you are aware. But still, we are almost having around 15 to 16 cases which we are handling right now. Now let's start off with the topic. I'll just share my screen with for the PPT. Just give me a second. Can you see the screen, everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay. So all of you must have heard about pre-packs. Does anyone has some information on what a pre-pack is, or has someone studied about pre-pack in this group?
Sir, there are a few professionals like my good friend Hanmantlu and Sarkar. They are aware of this. I do not know other people, but Hanmantlu sir and Sarkar both are knowledgeable in this area.
Okay, that's very good that there are people here who understand about pre-packs. Now, this pre-packs came into existence in April when the President of India promulgated the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Amendment Ordinance 2021. Now, this added a Chapter 3A to the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and introduced the pre-packaged insolvency resolutions specifically for the corporate debtors qualifying as MSME under Section 7 of the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act. Now, what is a pre-pack? Most of you must be wondering what a pre-pack is. It's not a new concept, actually. It has been in operation in many countries in the world, like United States, Singapore, United Kingdom, France, and Canada, and many more. The concept of pre-pack is there in many countries, but it is different in its inherent nature. And in India, it has been brought, which is a culmination of the good things of each of them. However, what we feel is that there are certain limitations that this pre-packs has. We'll come to see during the presentation. We will see what the bone is and what the bane is, as the introduction of our pre-packs is pre-packs bone or bane. Now, what was the need of pre-packaged insolvency in India? The COVID pandemic had imposed huge amount of lockdowns all over the world and forced companies, industries, and enterprises all over the world to remain shut for a long period of time, thus pushing many businesses, especially what we call the MSME sector. In other parts of the world, they're called the SME sector, into financial distress and causing a threat to the very existence of such enterprises. And mind you, these MSMEs provide lot of businesses to the economy. Their contribution to the GDP, not only in India but abroad as well, is significant. And after many deliberations, the pre-packaged insolvency was brought into effect. Pre-packaged insolvency has emerged as an innovative corporate rescue all around the world. And many of the countries use this legal tool to provide rescue to businesses in distress. And can you people like you would have understood and seen insolvency processes going bad and the timelines going awry. The normal timeline is of 330 days. It might go up to 2 years, probably 400 plus days in India. Can you imagine how fast a pre-pack works? Anyone can tell me how fast can a pre-pack work?
Sir, by law, 90 days and then 120 days is the upper limit for pre-pack for MSME. But
yes.
The way earlier experience of NCLT, it is going much beyond 240 days or something.
Yes.
It is going much beyond that.
I'll give you one statistics. In May 2019, a company in US called the SunGuard Availability Services had its pre-pack confirmed within 19 hours.
Good.
So that was a fastest ever pre-pack insolvency of 19 hours, in which within 19 hours, the company was back on its track with some sort of arrangement with the creditors. And this is the timelines that we talk about. 120 days pales down in comparison with 19 hours. You can easily imagine 19 hours and 120 days. So this is what we are talking about, and how to go about it is a very difficult process. So let's start off with our presentation. Now, what is a pre-pack? Basically, a pre-pack is an informal out-of-court settlement or a restructuring between a creditor and a debtor. For example, if someone owes a financial creditor 100 crores of rupees, and if he goes to the financial creditor and tells him, look, I can only pay you 50 or 60 crores. I do not have that much amount of money in a one-time settlement probably, or asks him to restructure his debt. Do you think a bank would accept that? They would not, because they would have to answer to the queries that why did they accept a settlement much below the book debt, probably 100 crores. I'm talking about a book debt that is not inclusive of interest. So this also gives them some sort of a leeway that this is thereafter a settlement has been reached between them. Then the advantage of a formal court-based approval system backing such restructuring provide them with a leeway to tell their superiors that this has been approved by the court. So this is one of the major incentive of a pre-pack, that it keeps the bankers away from some sort of a responsibility in case they do some sort of a restructuring with a corporate debtor. Normally what happens is that banks are very reluctant to give any sort of a haircut if the collateral is equivalent to the book debt. But I have seen, and we have already done it, that a lot of times we even take a haircut out of a book debt which is lesser than the value of the collateral. Collateral is much higher, book debt is lesser, and still we take a haircut on that using pre-packs. Now, what is the eligibility of an applicant to file an application to initiate the PPIRP? Now, PPIRP is pre-packaged insolvency resolution process. It is a process like CIRP. Now, a person needs to be a legal entity. That means he needs to be either a company or a LLP or a public limited company. And he needs to be a micro, small and medium enterprises under Section 7(1) of the MSME Development Act 2006. So these are the two major conditions that needs to be there for a person to initiate a PPIRP. I'll just call it a pre-pack insolvency. Now, the other conditions being that CD should not have gone towards CRP or PPIRP for 3 years preceding initiation date. So since pre-packaged insolvency has just been introduced, so the CD should not, by CD we mean the corporate debtor. So the corporate debtor should not have gone in a CRP 3 years preceding the initiation date of a pre-packaged insolvency. Under Section 33 of the IBC, no order should have been passed liquidating the corporate debtor. Now, very importantly, he should be eligible to submit a resolution plan under Section 29A. Now, 29A is a section in the IBC. For those who are not aware, it gives the eligibility criteria of a person who wants to submit a resolution plan. I'll not be going into a detail of that. Just for your knowledge, this is a section which actually tells about the eligibility of a person to submit a resolution plan. Now, what is the threshold of the default? As per the ordinance, by the way, the ordinance has been passed in April, and the Lok Sabha passed the amendment bill, I think, day before yesterday. So it might easily become a part of an act within next probably in the next week. So we'll be talking only about the ordinance as of now. The ordinance says that any default above rupees 10 lakhs shall be fined for initiating a pre-packaged insolvency. So the 10 lakh is a very important amount, because still the government has not decreased the threshold of CRP, which is 1 crore, but they have decreased the threshold for pre-pack insolvency, which is now 10 lakhs. So any default of 10 lakhs, one can initiate a pre-packaged insolvency. Probably you must be all aware of the definition of an MSME under the MSME Development Act. The micro enterprise, the investment to be less than 1 crore, turnover to be less than 5 crores. A smaller enterprise, the criteria being that investment should be less than 10 crores and turnover to be less than 50 crores. And the medium enterprise, the criteria being investment is less than 50 crores and the turnover being less than 250 crores. So this is the criteria for an MSME. Now, how is a pre-pack useful to as a tool in the IBC? It's an amicable, facilitates resolution. Unlike CRP, which is perceived to be adversarial. We'll be coming to that in CRP. Basically, the possession of the business is taken away from the debtor and passes on to the creditor with the COC. The COC comes into the picture and takes over the business. Here, if a person initiates pre-packaged insolvency, the debtor remains in possession under certain restrictions. So he can run his business, he can do whatever he feels like within the scope of those restrictions, so that this basically is taken from the US laws, where debtor remains in possession even in the CRP process of US. So it is not adversarial. It will increase cooperation from management. It will reduce litigation and allow for overall ease of coordination for the running of the business and keep the business as a going concern. Obviously, it will reduce litigation. There would be preservation of value. If you have seen in the last 2 to 3 years, it takes huge amount of time for a CRP to be come to its logical conclusion. The value preservation during those times of 2 years to 3 years, which is taking for a completion of a CRP, the value decreases substantially, which actually hampers the business to remain as a going concern. So value preservation is one of the major objectives of any insolvency act anywhere in the world. So this pre-pack, actually using the lesser time frame, help preserve value. And the last being the confidentiality. When the CRP is initiated, the RP, the resolution professional, or the interim resolution professional, actually puts in an ad in the newspaper saying that, okay, this company is going through a CRP, and it is a public knowledge to everyone, which is very bad in terms of which is very bad in terms of people coming to know about it. The public knowledge is there, and they feel somehow that the company is not doing fine, and many of the vendors lose confidence in the company, the employees lose confidence in the companies, the customers lose confidence in the company, stop buying their products. So this is a major fallout of a CRP, which incidentally does not take place in a PPIRP unless and until the PPI is initiated. I'll be coming to why this is so in the next couple of slides. Like I said, this is an informal process of PPIRP. What happens is that before initiating a PPIRP, the pre-packaged insolvency, the corporate debtor gets into consultation with their financial creditors. Say they ask them, okay, now we are going into some sort of a stress. and we need to come out of it. And there is one tool which has been given to the MSME sector of PPIRP, and we want you to restructure us in this. So if for example, it is 100 crore debt, and the financial creditors and the corporate debtor agree that, okay, we will restructure the company with total threshold pending credit for 70 lakhs, and we will give a haircut of 30 lakhs. I'm talking about the financial creditors. That informal process and the culmination of the negotiation with the financial creditors and the corporate debtor is very important in a pre-package insolvency. If that is not there, I would not advise anyone to go for a pre-pack insolvency, because it is going to finish off the company. So what does a person do? He initially gets into a informal sort of a mediation, you can call it a negotiation with the financial creditor to finalize their outlay of restructuring. Once that is taken care of and agreed, then the PPIRP can be initiated without any risk. The risk factor is very high in PPIRP, as you will see in the later slides. Now, what does a person has to do? Now, suppose the negotiation between the corporate debtor and the financial creditor has come to a conclusion with a positive finding that they would restructure it at a certain amount. So what the corporate debtor needs to do is, he needs to pass a special resolution. If it is a company, by 3/4 of the 3/4 of the voting rights of the directors and the shareholders, and only the board of directors need to find a 3/4 of the directors' powers, and 3/4 in numbers of the partners must pass a resolution approving the filing of the application. Now they must prepare a base resolution plan. So what is a base resolution plan? The base resolution plan is similar what they have negotiated with the financial creditor. There are certain aspects of base resolution plan that will come to later, that they should be compliant with the law, in terms of that there should not be any sort of an impairment to the operational creditors. By impairment, I mean that they should be paid in full. Their operational creditors needs to be paid in full if they want to get their base resolution plan filed. Directors have to declare that application needs to be filed within 90 days. The PPIRP is not being initiated to defraud any entity, and no fraudulent activity has taken place, and the particulars of the resolution professional. That has to be decided by the financial creditors. And approval of filing of the application by 66% of the unrelated financial creditors. Unrelated means that the financial creditors are not in any way related to the directors or the shareholders. So the 66% of the unrelated financial creditors would give a okay for filing the application. Mind you, we have already discussed that the informal resolution, informal mediation and negotiation has already taken place between the CD and the financial creditors. So they would not have any issues providing an approval of filing of the application by this 66% of votes of the financial creditors. Then the financial creditors nominate a resolution professional to take care of the PPIRP. Mind you, the resolution professional does not get the control of the corporate debtor. He is there just as a monitor, to monitor the company. Like I said, the management rests with the debtors. So it's called the debtor in possession, in short, DIP. The management of the corporate debtor time during the pre-package insolvency continues to rest with the board of directors. They can take decisions as per their whims and fancies, however, subject to some sort of a monitoring by RP and the consent requirement of COC for matters laid down in the code. These things can be like the ceiling, they can set a ceiling to the expenditure that board of directors want to do. Some sort of they need to take interim finance, they need to take consent of the COC. If they want to create any sort of a security, they need to take the consent of COC, and the RP needs to monitor them. Now, the board of directors needs to be careful. They can be divested of the management of the corporate debtor in certain circumstances. And if they are divested of the management, it can have catastrophic results for the corporate debtor. He shall lose his company. It is very important that if you are going to start a pre-package insolvency, you should be very, very careful that you have not done any fraudulent activities. You are going as per law during the PPIRP and prior to PPIRP as well. You have negotiated well with the financial creditors, because these things would ultimately boil down to that the management of the corporate debtor is taken away from the board of directors and is vested with the COC and the RP. Once that is done, 99% you can be assured that you will lose your company. So at any point in time, prior to completion or termination of PPIRP, 66, if the 66% of COC can vote to divest the management of the corporate debtor and hand over the management to the RP. The adjudicating authority may pass an order on an application made by the RP in this regard if the adjudicating authority is satisfied that affairs of corporate have been conducted in a fraudulent manner and there is a gross mismanagement of the affairs of the corporate debtor. So very, very clearly, if something hanky-panky has been done by the management, they can be assured that they would lose their company if the management of the corporate debtor is passed on to the RP. Now, this is a small process overview. We're not going to get into the details of that. We just want to tell you about how it affects the promoters and the directors of MSMEs. So initially the stage one, like the zero period, it is the culmination of what I have just spoken. There is an informal discussion. There is investor identification, finalization of a draft plan, which is called the base resolution plan. The 75% of majority of shareholders need to file a special resolution, 2/3 majority of unrelated FCs, identification of an RP and application to AA. Within the 90-day period, when at this point in time, the PPIRP is initiated, where the here. Can you see the cursor? Here.
Yeah.
So this is where the the pre-package insolvency starts. And there you have the 90 days time frame, wherein you have to do all these things: limited moratorium, public announcements, claim verification, IM finalization, appointment of valuers, avoidance transactions need to be taken care of, plan submission to creditors. There can be a Swiss challenge. We will be talking about it. The approval of creditors of plan liquidation or closure. That is the last and the final part of the pre-package insolvency, and the plan is binding on all shareholders. Now see this 90 days timeline. This was done within 19 hours in the US, and mind you, we can do it in India as well, but we need to make sure that the base resolution plan is in order, it has been properly filed, and the COC votes on it in a fast manner, and the adjudicating authority also acts in a very, very fast manner to clear that base resolution plan and then give the company back to the corporate debtor as a going concern. Now, a base resolution plan is a plan to be prepared by the corporate debtor in conformity with section 54A subsection 4 subsection C of the code and presented in the first instance to the committee of creditors. Now, this base resolution plan has to be submitted within 48 hours of initiation of PPIRP to the resolution professional. Since it has already been discussed with the financial creditors, there should not be any issues of presenting it within 48 hours to the resolution professional. and it must be approved by 66% of the COC and must be presented within 2 days of its formation of COC. Now, COC is formed within 7 days of the initiation of PPRP. These are some legal aspects which we need not be concerned right now. We are more concerned about how to go through the PPRP, whether PPRP would be beneficial to us or not, and whether my company or our company can have a resolution plan cleared by the financial creditors. And these are the things that we need to understand in this specific webinar. Now, a base resolution plan, the BRP, can be rejected by the COC in spite of their approval. There might be certain clauses which might come to the knowledge of COC and they might reject it. So this is a very, very risky process as per me, that if you have agreed on something and still they do not approve, the COC does not approve of the earlier negotiation, then you are in a big, big trouble. It's a big trouble, because once the COC rejects it, the RP is going to go for and call for the resolution plans from independent parties, right? And that can hamper you being in control of your company. In the event the base resolution plan is not approved, the RP shall invite prospective resolution applicants to submit resolution plans. Then the COC will also lay down some sort of an eligibility criteria for a prospective resolution applicant and form an evaluation matrix to evaluate the resolution plan. Now, this evaluation matrix would also take care of a word called significantly better. So if the base resolution plan says 50 crores to the debt of 100 crores and COC is not accepting that 50 crores, then they would call for a prospective resolution applicant to file their resolution plan. Now, the resolution applicant, the evaluation matrix for example, says that if it is better by more than 10%, say 55 crores, we will evaluate it. Otherwise, it would not be within the purview, because giving 5 more crores over 50 crores, it would be better that the earlier CD remains in possession of the business. I'm just taking an example. So if a plan comes from a prospective resolution applicant, which is say 57 crores, for example. So this is a significantly better than the base resolution plan by 2 crores, because the significantly better evaluation matrix says 5 crores or 10% over and above the plan given by the corporate debtor. So because this is just for your understanding that what does significantly better means, it is not something which can be defined. It is the COC which has to define what significantly better means to them. It is their own commercial judgment and wisdom which will say what is significantly better. So if it is significantly better, such plan may be approved by the COC with 66% of the votes. Now, if the base resolution plan is fine, they agree with it, that is passed. If base resolution plan is not passed, they call for a other plan from the independent parties. Now that plan is also not passed. Then what happens? Probably 57 crores, there is some sort of impairment, or there's some sort of a issue with the creditor. They have some, the applicant, they have some sort of a civil issue or whatever issues might there be. So the RP shall disclose the scores of, basically when you make an evaluation matrix, it's based on a score-based evaluation matrix. So the RP shall disclose the scores of the prospective resolution applicant's plan, and then they would make them both sit, the corporate debtor and the PRA. Now then the bidding is going to start. This is called a Swiss challenge that we earlier read in the earlier slide. So a Swiss challenge that the corporate debtor would try to better the PRA's resolution plan, and the PRA would try to better the corporate debtor. This would be sort of a bidding process, right? And whosoever wins it, I mean, if like we said, 50 crores is corporate debtor and 57 is the prospective resolution applicant. So the corporate debtor might say 57 crores and 50 lakhs, and the PRA might come in and say, okay, we give 58 crores, and the corporate debtor might come again and say, I'll give you 59 crores, and PRA doesn't want to come forward because corporate debtor is in possession and he knows where he can get the money from. Probably PRA doesn't have that sort of a valuation in his plan that he can support 59 crores, so he doesn't take it forward. The corporate debtor gets the 66% vote of the COC. So the improved submission process shall continue till one of the submitters, either the CD or the PRA, fails to utilize the opportunity to improve the plan. So if improvement of plan goes through a basis of a Swiss challenge. And if the CD wins or the PRA wins, the COC would actually approve the plan. But however, they do not approve the plan. The adjudicating authority thereafter may pass an order of termination, where the COC passes a resolution seeking termination or conversion to CIRP. This is one of the important major problems that PPIRP has, that it can also be converted to a corporate insolvency resolution process, right? Where obviously the company is going to either be liquidated or be sold to another person if required. A resolution plan is not submitted to the adjudicating authority within 90 days. That is one of the conditions, that it has to be submitted within the 90 days. If it is not submitted, the adjudicating authority may pass an order of termination. A resolution plan approved by COC rejected by the adjudicating authority on some legal grounds, right? So we need to make sure that the plan is taking care of all the legalities. Now, what happens if a termination order is passed? Would there be a mandatory liquidation? No, it cannot be terminated by the adjudicating authority. However, these 3 points which I have mentioned here are very important, which actually would take care whether the company is going to go bust or it is going to run again. An order for vesting the control or management of the corporate debtor with the resolution professional was passed by the adjudicating authority. I had stressed that one should not do anything in terms of initiating a PPIRP if there is some sort of fraudulent activity or gross mismanagement. The RP would, once the management control passes on to the RP, there is going to be a liquidation. An order for vesting the control with the RP has been passed by the adjudicator, and subsequently PPIRP sought to be terminated, citing any of the instance of termination. That is the prior slide that I was talking about. So in both the cases, if the order of vesting of control or management has been passed, the court is going to liquidate the company. Resolution plan approved by COC and the adjudicating authority is contravened or not implemented, then any stakeholder other than the corporate debtor, it can be a financial creditor, it can be an operational creditor, it can be an employee, can then apply for a liquidation order, which would be in most cases given by the adjudicating authority. So what is boon or bane? That was the introductory punchline of ours, boon or bane. So the pros is the reduced cost, reduced time, value preservation. Like I said, the timelines actually help out in preserving the value of the business. Binding nature, the sanctity of the plan over an out-of-court settlement or an informational mediation or a negotiation with the financial creditor. And the cons are the serial prepacking. There have been instances, because this is a very new concept in India, there have been instances abroad where the prepacks have been going for the last many years, that there is a serial prepacking. For example, I start a prepack and then have a formal, informal, because this is a concept which needs a little bit of understanding of the Western world's working of informal negotiations with the bank. They are very, very big on London approach. The London approach is an approach where the debtor gets into an informal negotiation with the financial creditor. This sort of tool is actually lacking in India. So they get into a negotiation with the financial creditor or any sort of a creditor and get into a into an agreement. Now, this agreement actually works like a CRP because they get into a standstill agreement. That standstill agreement means that, look, we are getting into a negotiation with you, so why don't you sign a standstill agreement which says that you will not be able to file any case whatsoever in any court of law for next 6 months. It's sort of a moratorium, an informal moratorium decided mutually between the corporate debtor and the financial creditor, right? So this being done and then going for a pre-pack, say after 2 years, they again do a pre-pack. Okay, we again start negotiating with the bank. So this is what serial pre-packing is. This is, I don't think this is possible in India, but still this is something which has been happening in the Western world. There is a lack of transparency in terms of transparency to the other stakeholders. Doubtful chances of success. Like there are many roadblocks here in the PPRP. If most of the times if it is the management control is taken over, then 99% you're going into a liquidation. So at this point in time, I've been advising clients, unless they are very sure about their financials, and some in one of the cases, one of my clients wanted to go for a pre-pack insolvency. We have started a forensic audit for them, which is suo moto. Let's check out the forensic audit report, and then we will probably go for a pre-pack. Another thing is the adjudicating authorities infrastructure. In one of my cases, the order was passed. The order was reserved after 7 months of deliberation by the adjudicating authority in a CIRP matter. The order was reserved in March and was pronounced in September. That is 6 months after the order has been reserved. Do you think you can have a value preservation if the order is passed so late, wherein the court says only 15 days for an order to be passed? So these are the things that the adjudicating authorities infrastructure is not that good in terms of providing orders in a very fast time, and that is the essence of any sort of an insolvency act anywhere in the world. It defeats the purpose of value preservation, keeping the company as a going concern. So this is very important that the infrastructure of our courts, the insolvency courts, needs to be very, very good and fast. So these are some of the cons which I believe can hamper successful administration of PPIRP. Now, I think I have gone beyond my given 30 minutes, so we can go for a question and answer sessions if you want. You can ask your questions now.
Very impressive presentation, and there are some questions and queries in chat box. Can you see and then answer them?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll just have to stop sharing the.
Yeah.
So for what is reduced litigation? See, if the plan has been negotiated with the financial creditor, what sort of litigation do we find in the CIRP process? Because that is the process that is effectively insolvency process in India as of now. So either a financial creditor is going to file an application with the adjudicating authority, or any of the stakeholders other than the financial creditors would file a application with the adjudicating authority. So in the PPIRP, since the negotiation has already been done, the plan has already been finalized. So the chances of long-term litigations are very less, and the time for the litigation is reduced, and the litigation itself is always also reduced. I hope I have answered this question.
Sir, my question to you is,
Yes.
A company should be a corporate this thing, or any partnership firm can also apply for this?
No, only a corporate entity can be a part of PPIRP as of now. But I believe there are procedures in right now that PPIRP is going to be brought in for other sort of constitutions as well, like partnership firm, a normal partnership firm, or an or some sort of another society or trust. They are in the pipeline, and they should be in the near future. They should be legislated.
Sir, second question is that you have asked for 100% payment to operational creditors.
Yes.
So you mean to say, suppose I have taken a personal loan as a loan, and it is not my sundry creditors, then is it applicable?
No, because if you have taken a loan on which you pay interest, or yesterday a judgment has come in where even if it is an interest-free loan, it is a financial debt.
Yes,
right?
Supreme Court has given
it will not be covered by an impairment to the operational creditor.
Okay. Last question, sir. SFC, State Finance Corporation, do they come in it?
Pardon, I didn't get you.
State Finance Corporation.
Yes.
See whether they are also to come under this.
In terms of as a financial creditor, or in terms of as a corporate debtor?
No. See, I have taken a plant and machinery from State Finance Corporation and working capital from say bank.
Yeah.
So see, as State Finance Corporation has got different powers like Section 29, while banks have got SAFRA-C and DRT. So whether if SFC, I have got a consortium, a term loan from SFC and a bank. So will I have to convince both the parties to come for a pre-pack?
Yes. See,
so this will not help.
If there are a consortium, then you talk to the consortium leader, right? If there is a different, not a consortium, you have different financial creditors, then you will have to negotiate with both of them.
Sir, SFC is generally controlled by states, and they are financial institution, but coming under SEED-B, while banks come under Reserve Bank of India, two separate. So there is no person who can bring them together unless until Commissioner of Industry or somebody starts
this is also a procedural problem for us.
Okay. Sir, there are many questions in chat box.
Yeah, I'm just going through that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Sarkar wants to ask you a question directly.
Yes, Mr. Sarkar, please.
So basically what we understood is the benefits of the benefits of the PPIRP process basically lies in the timeline and the direct negotiation of the debtors with the creditors. Are there any other benefits you foresee?
See, the basic benefit of a PPIRP is a restructuring, negotiating with the banks, and confirming through a court.
And the timeline, I'm comparing this with
and the timeline.
CIRP,
and the timeline. Yeah. These are the two major benefits that within say 120 days you will get your restructuring done. So today, if you go to a bank and ask them for a restructuring, in many of our cases where we have gone to bank for restructuring, they've taken more than a year even to pass an order upon that.
but now there are some inherent risks also. So
There are a huge amount of risks.
So when we enter into a say informal discussion, can a MSME back out after that informal discussion, or
Till
is
the
it
time,
binding?
see, now this is something between, say, me and yourself are into a negotiation. Probably I owe you some money, right? And I come to you and ask you, sir, I had taken 100 rupee loan from you. Can I give you back 70? So if you are agreeable on that, we can go ahead. Otherwise, the negotiations have been broken. You will say, I want my 100 including interest. So I can't pay you that. So it's gone. So now then you have the right to initiate CRP upon me. Right. So this is a mutually discussion has to take place, wherein both of them are on the same frame. You cannot bypass your responsibility and authority. Like, you have the authority, the responsibility on payment of money is mine. So I cannot bypass that. I can simply try and negotiate with you.
So
If the negotiation is successful, then it is fine. Otherwise, we are back to square one.
So basically, it's basically giving an opportunity to taste waters before jumping into it.
Yes. But there is another, till the time you have not initiated a negotiation, banks have been sleeping probably. They might wake up and then start some sort of a process against you. So this is a very risky process, as far I think.
So if bank has started suppressy action and other things, or DRT, still we can go and negotiate?
Yes.
And whether we have to take RP from the day one, and who will bear the cost of all that?
The CD is going to bear the expenses. It is always a CD decides up to who's going to bear the expense.
So taking a clue from Desai Saab, the question he said, when the banks have already initiated a process and you enter into a formal negotiation and say you agree on the negotiation and you go ahead with the PPIRP, will the PPIRP be binding, or the banks can again fight?
PPIRP would be binding. PPIRP would be binding. Probably a moratorium would also be given on whatever cases have been initiated earlier. Because if the cases have been initiated, moratorium needs to be there.
Okay. That's
Gupta Sahab, RBI has given at time to time various restructuring and circulars, but banks do not abide. So how this process will be more useful or more beneficial to MSME?
I didn't understand your question. Who has given the circular?
Reserve Bank time to time for restructuring the debt has come out for roughly 30-40 years. But banks don't follow. And in the process, they say, kal aao, parso aao, and then the things goes on, and one fine day, we find Saprasi notice and DRT notice coming, and the entrepreneur gets perked up, and then he loses all the hopes. So in that case, this process is better, or we can force bank to execute that guidelines in a time. Reserve Bank has given time-bound guidelines, but none of the banks are following that. There is no mechanism.
Besides, this is not an adversarial tool. This is something which has to be negotiated. And if the banks do not want to negotiate, they don't even want to follow the RBI rules, the CD can't do anything.
So this is what is the reality. My friend Hanmantlu or other friends also will agree. They don't want to give any benefit because they come under questioning by their higher authorities or some public this thing. So they don't want to initiate.
Decisive, I just want to say one thing, that if they are afraid, the banks are afraid of negotiating, this is one tool which can absolve them of negotiation.
No, but here you are saying that we should get a consent from them before going through this. They will never give a consent.
No, if they are agreeable, then they have a tool where the court is giving an order to them that this has been done. So their higher authorities, the basic fear of any banker is that my board or my EDs are going to fire me if I do something and take a haircut. So these things, this can be mitigated by going through a PPIRP.
Gupta ji, what you are talking is about 50, 100 crore, and
Yeah.
I am talking about 5 to 10 crore people where the large number bottom of pyramid are there, and they fear, they go there, they try, but they don't get any positive response. So RP also can help us to negotiate.
See, sir, RP would only come in when the PPIRP is initiated. Prior to that, there is no role for a RP.
So there is no possibility of arbitration. Same bank officers we have to deal always.
Yes,
and
yes.
they will say they will treat like Harijans for
Yes.
a smaller borrower, and that is what is exactly happening today. So there is no mechanism either this or that will help them.
Yes,
That
yes.
is what I am concluding.
So see, the size of it is, see, our Insolvency Act is only 3 years, 4 years old, right? Now, there are jurisdictions where they have been working for last 20 years, 25, 30 years, probably more than that. So those jurisdictions have evolved over time, and we also need to evolve. Our banks also needs to evolve. They need to understand that keeping a business running is in their benefit, because they're going to pay them their interest from which they make their income. If they take a haircut, it is only the public's money that is being taken to a task.
Okay. Sir, any further question? Hanumantu sir wants to ask a question. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
Hanumantu sir.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Sir,
My
put
pleasure,
question
sir.
in my, I put my question in my chat box also.
Can you please
Sir,
repeat it? I can't see that.
Why bank financial creditor will accept the resolution plan of the creditor, corporate data, especially when the loans are fully secure? This is
Sorry,
the,
sir, I couldn't hear you. Can you just repeat that?
Sir, what he is trying to say, banks are generally in MSME are generally secured because there is a credit guarantee or collateral of about 100% or 200%. So
Okay.
why banks should accept this resolution process? That is what his question is.
Okay.
Am I right, Hanumantu sir?
yes, there is one more thing, sir. Generally, the mentality of the banker is different from entrepreneur. Entrepreneur wants to continue business, and banker wants to collect money as early as possible. Both are contradictory interests, and that will create a lot of problems. And
Sir,
you see, either it should be the comfortness of the borrower or comfortness of the lender. Both cannot be possible. If he gives more time to, if the creditor gives more time to the borrower, what is the loss?
sir, this is
Because
what I was saying.
he's getting his interest. He's getting
Evolution, the
There is no
evolution,
loss to him.
evolution of both the corporate debtor and the banks is taking place in the Indian context. Earlier, if you would have,
At what cost? How much time it will take?
it might take 3 to 4 years more. The banks also have to change their mindsets from being recovery to act as to use the insolvency as a recovery mechanism. They should be in the mode of to save the company.
Yes,
Because if
that is important.
Value
Protection
retention.
of
value retention, yes. And the
protection of
preservation the
existing
assets. Yeah.
protection of existing MSME is most important.
Yes, and just tell me if the CRP processes or the PIP processes result in liquidation of companies, what is going to happen? It is always going to decrease your GDP. It is
Yes,
going
everybody
of-
will incur loss.
yeah, there would be
everybody
loss
will
of
incur
jobs.
loss.
There would be loss of
Yes,
the businesses. So this is
Yes.
not in everybody's interest. At this point in time, we are just baby. We are an insolvency baby right now.
Yes,
So we
yes,
need
yes.
to mature faster so that
Yes.
GDP can go back on its track.
So generally, no borrower wants to evade or to become defaulter, because his life is also involved, his security is also involved.
Sir, my
But
organization
the only
is
thing,
called,
the time will change. There may be gap of time, or maybe
sir, my
delay in
organization is
disbursement,
called
business
Early Warning
may be
India.
there. Anything may happen. But that the cushion should be given by the lender. Why they want to immediate action, immediately after NPA? That is the main problem.
Sir, my answer to you is that my organization is called Early Warning India. And
Yes.
every bank has an early warning signal department where they watch every debtor and see what their future projections are. They are in knowledge of the fact that the company is going into stress, but nobody takes care of that. So that has to change.
Yes, yes. That is important. That is important. The mentality has to change.
It is very difficult, sir. It is very difficult to change bankers. They are horribly bad when comes to even third party goes and negotiate. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to support for a resolution. They want only recovery, recovery, and recovery.
Desai sir, tell me one thing, even if they recover everything and they do not provide finances to other companies, where is their profit going to come from? In the near
Reserve Bank
future?
is giving them 3.25% repo rate, so
Yeah.
they will make that money. Make
So that
losses.
is not,
See, they will make losses. That is why if they don't take the decisions, it is going to harm country, as my good friend Hanmantlu sir also was telling, Sarkar is also telling, and another good friend is there, Dr. Manikantam. He is also an entrepreneur. So he is also suggesting some faster process should be there. See, in our marriage life, we have got a system of our caste to support and resolve the issues when it comes. Here they wait for a divorce to come. That is all. In between processes they are missing.
that's
That
what I
is what-
said. That's what I said. Besides that, in the Western world, they have in US, UK, Canada, South Africa, Australia, they have some sort of an informal tools which they use, which is normally called as London approach, which they use to settle their disputes. They also, and one of the important factor is that they use mediation techniques.
That is what
to
exactly I am saying.
sort out the issues between the debtor and a creditor. Now, these things, what I believe is these things are going to come in India in the near future. There is a mediation act coming in, which is going to be the first step for any sort of a dispute, be it between husband and wife, be it between a creditor and a financial creditor. This is a fact that mediation is going to be made compulsory in the first instance in any sort of a dispute.
Supreme Court is in favor in the case of Kirloskar also. They have asked the same thing. So in the interest of time, one more question can we take, or shall we close?
Yeah, we can take one more question. Tell me.
Sir, any question, or in chat box if you can see.
So, Mr. Gupta,
Ji.
I just wanted to ask, till now what I gathered is this is a bill. This pre-packed insolvency was an ordinance. It has been converted into a bill,
Law.
but still now it's not an act. It's not law yet.
No, it has been passed by Lok Sabha. It has been passed by Lok Sabha.
That's
Now,
what Mr. Gupta says. It will be a money bill which they will introduce, and they will get a approval in next week or so.
Okay,
That is
but
what Mr.
SEBI,
Gupta predicts.
but SEBI was in the process of framing some rules.
that rules have also been framed.
Okay, so any changes or any mediation steps as you said?
Sarkar Sahab, I have not gone through them as of now because I have been quite busy in a lot of other things. So I'll answer your question probably end of next week.
One to one, Sarkar will be there with you. If you've got some time tomorrow, we can have a telephonic chat.
Yeah, sure, we can. Why not?
Okay. So in interest of time, I say thanks to Mr. Gupta, and
My pleasure, sir.
Many of my good friends have said that we should promote this kind of activity further, particularly Dr. Manikantan. So we'll take again, we'll give you trouble to, he is a Rotarian business here. So he is today, it may be in Chandigarh. So we'll take another opportunity if you permit, and
Yes.
we will continue this knowledge sharing session probably maybe in another month's time. By the time more clarity will come. My next webinar is on 7th of August, and it will be on operational efficiency. How to improve your operational efficiency will be there in next 7th at the same time. Thank you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you.
Can we close? Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.